Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I went shopping for some meat at Costco, and the prices are not terrible, but I know that the prices are going to get higher and higher as time goes on. I got a couple of things to share with you today. Yesterday I made a phone call to a ranch that's quite a bit of a distance away from us, maybe about 2 hours away or so, to see if I can buy a side of beef. And ladies and gentlemen, they are 1.5 years behind, meaning that there's a 1.5 year waiting list before you can even buy a side of beef. And they've got it rationed to where you cannot buy more than a side. I asked them, I was like, can I buy a whole cow? And they're like, no, we can't do that because our waiting list is so long. We want to make sure that we take care of our customers. And I said, I understand. And she said, well, do you want me to put you on the waiting list? And I said, absolutely. It's a 1.5 years out. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then, but it's a 1.5 years out. And this is something that I would recommend to anyone that has a ranch that, sells cattle or sells pigs. This ranch also sells pigs. And by the way, they're all free of antibiotics. They're grass fed, all natural, all organic stuff that they put into these cows and pigs. And the price is actually good. When you have enough room in a freezer to fit at least a half of a cow, a half side of beef or a side of beef, it's so much better as far as the price averaging out over the whole cow. I know that some cuts of beef are a lot more than others, but in this case, the side of beef that I put my name on the list for a 1.5 years from now is going to come out to be around $1,800. And for that, you get roughly 180 to 200 pounds of finished cut beef. So it comes out to be roughly $9 to $10 per pound altogether. And of course, from that, you've got your ribeye, you've got your rib bones, your ribs, you've got your roasts, all of that stuff. You got your hamburger. If you want to keep some of the organs, you can keep some of the organs, etc., etc. But it all averages out to about $9 to $10 per pound. They also have pig or hogs there that they don't have a waiting list for right now, and those average out to about $600 to $800 per hog, depending on the weight when it's hanging after it's been cleaned out and processed and everything. But the message is this: number one, get your meat now. I am so glad that I'm stocked up on meat, and even though it's more expensive in the supermarket right now, and especially if you get specialty meats, like if I go to Tommy G's, those meats are really expensive, and compared to what you get at the regular supermarket. But it's the quality that you're paying for when you get specialty meat cuts like that, like from a local butcher like Tommy G's here in Fairbanks, Alaska. But if you have the resources, or if you have an available ranch near you where you can order your beef, order it now. Put your name on the list now, because I'm assuming, being that I don't live in the lower 48, I'm assuming that if it's like that now here in Alaska, where there's a waiting list of 1.5 years, it's probably something like that near you. So check where you live, see how available they are, and if they are out far enough, then put your name on a list. That way, by the time that your name gets called and it's your turn to go pick up your beef or your hog or whatever it may be, then by that time you will have had time to have some open space in your freezer. And another thing that I want to talk about is inflation. And I'm going to go over something that just came out here not too long ago, so stand by, but I want to talk about inflation as well. So you just heard me say that a side of beef is going for roughly $1,800, right? Not pounds. We're not in England. And a side of pork or a hog, side of a hog, is going for about $600 to $800. So roughly $2,400 for a side of a beef and a side of a pork, of a hog, right? So the way I look at that, ladies and gentlemen, is, okay, I'm going to spend about $2,400 on enough meat that will feed my family for roughly a full year. Okay, that will feed us for roughly a full year. We might need a little bit more, maybe some chicken for variety and stuff like that. But I'm thinking that if I want to make sure that inflation doesn't run away with the prices in the next 1.5 years, that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go buy an ounce of gold. So I'm going to go and take the money that I was going to use to buy that meat, the beef and that pork should have been available next week or in a month. I'm going to take that. I'm going to go buy myself an ounce of gold. And I'm going to put it in a small envelope. And it's going to say beef and pork. And when the time comes to buy that beef and pork, if for some reason inflation has run away, I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to trade in that ounce of gold and go ahead and buy that beef. Now, why am I not getting 100 ounces of silver or so? It's just so much easier to just get an ounce of gold and put that away instead of getting roughly 80 ounces or so of silver. But ladies and gentlemen, that's what I'm doing. You go ahead and do what it is that you think is best for you as far as turning fiat currency into real money, i.e. gold and silver. Now take a look at this right here. 2023 meat shortage, the largest beef supply drop in 40 years. So start making plans now if you are a beef eater. If you are a meat eater, ladies and gentlemen, start making plans now on how are you going to get your beef next year or in a year and a half. All right. I think that in the long run, this will get better. But I believe it's going to take years before it gets better and before prices start to stabilize where you're not having to expend more of your hours to buy the same amount of meat, since that's what we're talking about here. The meat industry forecast for 2023 predicts a significant decrease in the supply of beef, leading to higher prices for everyone. I am going to start putting away beef like crazy. I am going to start freeze drying it raw. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start freeze drying it raw just so that I can put it away faster, because I believe that beef prices, as I've been saying for the last year and a half or two, they're only going to continue to go up. Yes, we all remember, all right, and I remember, and this is for those of you that maybe have a short memory. I remember when I first had a ribeye. The first time I ever had a ribeye was here in Alaska. And it was a ribeye that I bought at Costco's. I would never ever think of spending $7.99 for a pound of meat. And that's why I would never buy a ribeye prior to them. Right? I kept seeing them on their little section, $7.99 a pound. And I would tell my wife, I'm not paying $7.99 a pound. Are you crazy? That's ridiculous. And one day we tried it, right? And we were like, oh my goodness, this is so good. It was delicious. And ever since we've been hooked. But ladies and gentlemen, remember, that was $7.99, and that was only like, what, 3 years ago? Like 3 years ago, because I know that because Costco's only been here a little over 3 years now. So that was about 3 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, $7.99. Now, I believe it was $13.99 yesterday when I was at Costco. So that's almost a doubling. But you remember when it used to be like $18.99? It went all the way up to like $18.99, and now it dropped, but it's found a new floor. It's like I've been telling you all these years. That's how they trick us with inflation, or that's how they trick the average layman with inflation. It shoots straight up, and then it comes back down. And then it settles at a level that is much higher than what it used to be. $7.99, $13.99. Right? And then next time that inflation comes in again, like a tsunami, it'll shoot up to $27 a pound, right? Or $26.99. And then it'll come back down and settle around $18 a pound or $17.99 a pound. That is how they've always done it. Same thing with gasoline. Same thing with pretty much anything, ladies and gentlemen. So get your stuff now. Put it away now in the best way that you can to preserve it for long term. All right. So let's continue on here. Sorry for that little detour there, but I just had to get that out. Reports estimate that on average, Americans will eat 5.6% less beef this year due to shortages. If you don't want to eat less meat, then securing your supply now is crucial. When the supply dropped 4% in 2003, feed steer prices advanced by nearly 25%. You know how I always tell you that only because inflation is going to be X percent, 5, 6, 7, 8%, it doesn't mean that that's what you'll be paying. That usually you're going to end up paying 2-3 times more. We could be looking at a similar 20% price hike for beef in 2023, which is why you should take advantage of our price lock guarantee today. This is a place right here that you can go to buy beef, but that's not what this video is about, right? I recommend that you go to your local rancher, the one that's closest to you, that you can maybe drive to and see what their operation looks like. You know, when I go pick up my beef eventually, maybe we'll drive there and do a short tour of the place so that you can all see what it looks like. They continue to say there are several reasons behind the current meat shortage crisis. The closure of meat processing plants due to outbreaks or even potential outbreaks of the health crisis among workers caused a major slowdown in production, leading to supply chain disruptions. The health crisis has also led to a decrease in the total herd size since farmers were selling cows earlier than they usually would. And remember when we were talking about this probably 6 months to a year ago, that farmers really couldn't afford the hay prices because of inflation, because of input costs, something that we talked about a lot. So now that has caught up to us, ladies and gentlemen, and it will continue to catch up to us until they can replenish their herds. And I don't see that happening for a while, at least 2 or 3, 4 years. And here you can see the cattle inventory in the United States as of January 1st of this year, 2023. You can see, look at this, ladies and gentlemen, all the way back in 1998. They are doing, and when I say they, I mean our overlords, right? They are doing such a great job at destroying our nation piece by piece. We go all the way back to 1998, and we had 100 million head. I mean, we were a powerhouse, right? And then here we are, 1993, and we have about 89 million, 88 million head. That's a 12% decline, roughly, all right? Roughly a 12% decline. And that's a huge decline in beef, you know, in cattle. They say here that another factor contributing to shortage is the increasing demand for meat in developing countries, particularly in Asia. These countries become wealthier, their citizens are consuming more meat, leading to a higher demand for it globally. And as the United States citizenry gets more broke, gets poorer, these other countries get wealthier, ladies and gentlemen. And those meats that we have here, the beef that we have here, that's already at a high price, is going to get an even higher price because there's even more demand outside of our borders. So what am I getting at here? I'll go ahead and leave this article linked on a pinned comment so that you can come and revisit it, all right? I'll let you come in and read the rest of it. What I'm getting at here is, ladies and gentlemen, what have we been talking about for years? Get ready. This is something that you should already be ready for, right? Because we've been talking about this for years. And if you don't eat beef, this is the same situation with anything that you do eat. Put it away for long term. And if you eat mainly things that don't last long term, try to find substitutes for those things that will last long term. What am I doing? I told you already. I am going to start buying beef, even though I know I've got a side of beef locked in, right? It's locked in, but I say it's not guaranteed until I've got it in the back of my truck, right? Even though I've got it locked in, I am going to start putting money away in the form of beef in my freeze dryer. And if you don't have a freeze dryer, there's other ways of being able to put away beef, i.e. my favorite form of putting away beef, to tell you the truth, is pressure canning. However, that just takes up so much more space and it weighs so much more than freeze drying. And of course, freeze drying preserves the nutrients in that meat, or in whatever you freeze dry. About 98% of the nutrients, whatever you freeze dry, are preserved. You know, and last, obviously, if you package it correctly, 25, 30 years. If you can't afford to go out there and buy a $130 slab of meat, then go out there and buy a couple of pounds of hamburger, or 5 or 6 pounds of hamburger, and put it through your pressure canner. If you eat meat. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got something out of this. Again, I truly do hope that you take heed to this warning. God bless every one of you. Thank you very much for your support. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I am out.